Have you ever met someone who seems wise beyond their years? Someone who carries themselves with a quiet seriousness, who handles difficulty without flinching, who rarely asks for help and almost never falls apart in front of anyone? People admire them for it. They call them strong, mature, capable. But psychology says that behind that composure is often something that was never meant to be admired. It was meant to be noticed and helped a very long time ago, before they learned that nobody was coming, before they learned to stop waiting and simply become the adult the room required. 1. They were handed responsibilities that were never theirs to carry. Developmental psychology identifies this experience as parentification, a process in which a child is placed, consciously or unconsciously, in the role of caretaker for the parent's emotions, for the household, for younger siblings, for the family's stability. The child didn't apply for this role. They were appointed to it by circumstance. And because children are neurologically wired to adapt to whatever environment they are placed in, they adapted. They became competent. They became reliable. They became the thing the situation needed at the precise age when the situation should have been providing for them instead. 2. They skipped the part of childhood where it was safe to need things. Attachment research shows that healthy child development depends on a specific and irreplaceable experience, the experience of having needs, and having those needs reliably met by a consistent, available adult. That experience teaches the nervous system something foundational. The world is safe enough. People can be depended on. Needing is not dangerous. But for children who grew up too fast, that experience was interrupted or never fully arrived. They learned the opposite lesson. Needing was a burden. Depending was a risk. Wanting comfort was a luxury the situation could not afford. And so they stopped needing or learned to need so quietly that nobody ever had to respond. 3. Their childhood emotions had nowhere safe to go, so they went inward. Neuroscience and trauma psychology show that when children cannot express difficult emotions safely because expressing them upsets the adults, or because there is no adult available, or because the household requires calm above all else, those emotions do not disappear. They are suppressed, stored, and carried forward. The child who never cried because crying wasn't an option becomes the adult who doesn't know how to cry even when they desperately need to. The child who learned to manage their own fear becomes the adult who manages everyone else's fear and has no language for their own. The emotions didn't go away. They just went somewhere no one can see. 4. They became so good at functioning that everyone forgot to check if they were okay. Research on invisible resilience shows that children and adults who cope effectively are systematically less likely to receive support because their coping looks like thriving. They do not send the distress signals that prompt concern. They manage. They continue. They show up. And the people around them, relieved by the absence of visible crisis, stop asking. Stop checking. Stop looking underneath the competence for what the competence is costing. These people learn to function as a survival strategy. And functioning so well became, over time, its own kind of isolation because it communicated to the world that they were fine when they were anything but. 5. As adults, rest and play still feel vaguely wrong. Psychology links early over-responsibility to a persistent and deeply uncomfortable relationship with unstructured time. People who grew up too fast often find leisure genuinely difficult, not as a preference, but as a neurological reality. Their nervous system associates productivity with safety and stillness with danger. Play, for a child who was never allowed to simply be a child, was often an unaffordable luxury. Work was how they stayed safe. Usefulness was how they stayed loved. And so decades later, sitting in a garden doing nothing, taking a day for themselves, allowing the afternoon to pass without accomplishment, these things produce a quiet, sourceless anxiety that has no logical explanation. Its explanation is not logical. It is historical. 6. What they needed most was never strength. It was someone to be strong for them. This is the truth that psychology finds at the center of every person who grew up too fast, the truth that often takes a lifetime to reach. They did not become capable because they were ready. They became capable because readiness was never offered to them as an option. The strength everyone admired was not chosen. It was required. And underneath it, not instead of it, but underneath it is a child who needed exactly what every child needs. Someone to arrive. Someone to say, "You don't have to manage this. I am here. I will handle it. You are allowed to be small for a while. You are allowed to not know. You are allowed to need." That child is still there, waiting very patiently for someone to finally say those words and mean them. And the most important person who can say them is the adult they became. If you grew up too fast, psychology doesn't call the result of that strength. It calls it an adaptation, extraordinary, costly, and entirely understandable given what you were given to work with. You were not born without needs. Your needs were simply treated as an inconvenience at an age when they were supposed to be treated as sacred. You deserved a childhood that held you. You deserved to be small before you were asked to be large. And healing, real healing, is not about becoming stronger. It is about finally, slowly, learning that you are allowed to put the weight down, that someone else can carry it for a while, that you were never supposed to carry it alone, and that it is not too late, it is never too late to let yourself rest. If this reached something in you that has been waiting a long time to be seen, subscribe. Because on this channel, we don't celebrate resilience for its own sake. We go underneath it. We find what it cost. And we sit with the truth that the most remarkable thing about the people who grew up too fast is not how much they carried it, is that they carried it alone, for so long, without anyone ever stopping to ask if they needed help. You needed help, you still do, and that is not weakness. That is the most human thing about you.